Yay!
Hey, this is kbutch. Thanks for tuning in. I feel like the last video that I had made caused a bit of a ruckus. I usually don't like to be perceived online, but I really appreciated the amount of comments that I received. And that being said, I decided maybe it is better that I use citations and go back to a very academic way of presenting information so people don't feel like I'm talking candidly, out of my ass, and recognize that, maybe I know how to read. So here we are. I wanted to preface this video by sharing some interesting stats about online dating. So as a Gen Zer, I feel like I've experienced a lot of like dating trauma. We could call anything trauma these days, but truly, like at the end of the video, you'll understand why it's trauma because it actually got to a point where it was like unsafe. But that's down the line. A few quick stats that are super important to discuss. So online dating, as we all know, is a new invention and it has transformed the way that we connect with others. Almost 80% of online dating users are under 30 years old, which is mainly like zillennials, some millennials, and Gen Zers, which is so scary that, like time moves this quickly. And I feel like, wow, just a year ago I was 19. Anywho, Tinder is the number one app that is being used across all the dating apps. There were some interesting stats about like up and coming apps, but it hasn't been enough research done with those apps. 1 in 5 adults from 18 to 29 meet their significant other through a dating app. That is 20% of people in my age range. 20%! That's wow. And I'm assuming that number will continue to grow as people continue to consume content or, like grow less inclined to meet people in person, because that tends to be the general trend I've observed watching people like navigate dating, especially in like major cities. Like people just want to be on the apps for like quick and consistent like dates, etc. This stat I really found interesting, where like 51% of women had a net negative experience, but within the entire range, like 13% of women surveyed had a very negative experience, and on the flip side, 13% had a very positive experience. Wild. Super interesting stats. Just wanted to share that up top so I don't get roasted by millennials yelling at me in the comments, telling me that I'm uneducated or all these like mean things. And it's fine. Like if you can say things constructively, I will, respond. I love a good, engagement of like conversation and critique. But if it's mean and you're using curse words, like, I don't know, like, is that a good use of your time? I don't think so. But anywho, I found this part of the Pew Research study super interesting because of the people surveyed, people were disappointed across the board. Like, regardless of gender, 90% of women were disappointed of their selection and 87% of men. A quick comment on that. I feel like that's so scary that, like, despite having access to all of these like people on an app, like we still don't feel satisfied. I think that points to a broader like dissatisfaction of like, I don't know, just people not willing to compromise and like be realistic about things, and thinking that they can either like pull more or like shouldn't settle for less depending on like what gender you are. But I just found that stat very interesting, and like we know this anecdotally as well as like in the statistics, but it's 54% of women are overwhelmed by the number of like responses that they're getting, whereas like only 25% of men are feeling overwhelmed. So there's a clear disparity in like how many people are like actively seeking out women versus like how many men, are getting messages from women in the first place. And that points to broader gender norms that we have become accustomed to throughout the years. But yeah, I just found it so interesting that like women still felt, like an insecurity because the lack of messages. Like I don't know the current climate of like heterosexual males, but I don't know. I feel like if you ask women anything nicely, they'll kind of just like be down. So I don't know where I'm going with this point, but I just found these stats really interesting. But if you want to hear more about like my dating story, next slide. Next slide. Wow, I look so young and youthful and alive back in the day. I used to even wear makeup. That's what a time. What a time. But Kay Butch does not do that anymore. She does not wear makeup. She just wears a little lip liner and calls it a day because she is tired. Doesn't have the time for that. Anywho, this is my interesting dating journey using Tinder. So, as a naive 19-year-old in college, I decided to download the apps. As any regular student does. I, unfortunately, am very shy and I get overwhelmed and I don't like to meet too many new people at once. It gets very overwhelming. So I got a lot of likes, and I think in the previous slide you saw that a lot of women don't really worry about getting messages and whatnot. But a lot of wild things happen on the internet, and I would not have really caught on had my friends not flagged it to me. But yeah, but please, next slide, next slide. Yeah. So, I like to mind my own business. I don't like being online too much. I feel like it's really boring for me. The only reason I'm online right now is like I've been going through a lot of like personal changes, and I need some form of creative outlet that doesn't pertain to work. So I feel like maybe reflecting on my more youthful days will, like liven me up for the first time in a while. So, anywho, I'm talking about this. I kept getting messages on Instagram and then just random texts from people I didn't know that aren't on my contact list. So I was very confused. And by this point, I had like deleted like Tinder, had not used it. I had tried logging back in, and apparently I was banned. And I was like, I'm a curvy person, so maybe they just like hate women and decided to ban me. So I was like, whatever. I don't have time for it. I don't care. And this model like DM'd me, and I was like, oh wow, like he like had liked my things, and I was like, oh wow, like, oh, beautiful, like bone structures. I literally said, I'm screaming your bone structure. And he said he saw my Tinder, and I was very confused because I had been blocked at that point. And apparently someone had been cosplaying me, or I guess in like the more millennial term, like like catfishing as me. And that was very confusing because I'm like, I don't perceive myself to be like a super attractive person by any means, but like I just kept getting random text messages. Like the one on the left was very confusing to me, where I was like, I never rejected you because I don't know who you are. Like, how do you have my number? But I just kept getting like random messages to the point that like I had to figure out how to like change my phone number. And then every time I changed my phone number, someone would leak my new number, and it just kept being this violent cycle. Um, so very confusing, very confusing. And I thought this was like tolerable because, like it, these people aren't going to be like harassing me in person. They're just going to be like leaving me alone and yelling at me through the internet. And I can handle that. Like my parents are so mean that any abuse that you can think of, I have gone through it, and I'm very unfazed and unbothered. But then I get a random text from a coworker, and I don't like to be online. When I tell you I am someone who is perpetually offline, I literally post my little like story of my garden or like whatever I'm doing, and I log off and I leave. So I try not to be on my phone because I have to be on my phone all the time for work, and I just feel like I'm really bound to my phone. I don't want to live that way. Anywho, tangent. I got this random text from my coworker, and I was like, oh my god, no way that this is impacting my professional life. And it did. And it did. It was very confusing. It was very confusing. I had been off the apps for about 3 years at this point, and I had changed my number 3 times. And whoever kept catfishing as me kept putting me on random websites. And I had to figure out, how the hell do I not let this impact my work life? And during this entire time, I'm still working. I'm still paying for my rent. I'm still like figuring out what to do with my career. Like there's a lot of different stressors that's going on. And on top of that, I just have like this random person who constantly is catfishing as me. And I had watched like an episode of Catfish once in like, I think middle school or high school. Like I don't even remember how long ago it was because it was such a long time ago. And I just never imagined that this would happen to me because like I genuinely think I look so average that I'm like, why would you want to pretend you're me online? Like I am so like I'm so normal. Like why would you want to be me? So it just kept happening, and I didn't know how to stop it. So my decision was like, okay, I'm never going to be on dating apps again. And I did that. I did that for like a cool like year because I was like just minding on my own business, focusing on my career, and I kept getting posted on things. So I had to figure out how to like hire like different legal support to like wipe things clean off their internet. And like when things were normal, they were normal. But when waves of this would pick up, like it would be this constant loop of like me chasing these people who are like catfishing as me, while simultaneously I'm trying to enjoy my life as a fully grown adult with a frontal lobe, like a fully developed, like healthy frontal lobe, trying to figure it all out. And yeah, I like, why do people catfish? Like if you don't feel attractive, or if you don't have that confidence, there's no joy in pretending to be another person. Like just be yourself. Like look at that one that like monster looking guy dating Selena Gomez. Like there is hope everywhere as long as you're charismatic and as long as you're easy to talk to. Like I think especially with heterosexual women, you just have to be nice and you also have to be interesting and funny. And I think like humor and consistency is what heterosexual women strive for, you know? So if you can do that, like I think she can lower the bar a bit more for your physical appearance. But yeah, this has been my dating experience. So I feel like anecdotally, I wish I was part of that upper percentile of people who are like ecstatic about being online. But every time I've been online, I just keep getting posted somewhere. So I feel like the only time I can be myself is when I'm like creating content that comes directly from my mouth talking and like my ideas on paper or ideas on like a video or like ideas in an event, like ideas on something that has my name affixed to it through work that I've done, either professionally, like academically or something that people can't take away. And I just like, I have so many feelings about just online dating because this happens so frequently and there's no oversight. And it really like concerns me that the lack of regulation with all of social media as well as like the development of new technologies like AI and deepfakes, and it's so scary. So I can't. I'm gonna skip to the next slide of like what I think younger Gen Zers and younger folks should do just to protect themselves and be more cybersecurity focused and aware. Okay, one last thing I did forget to mention, like as the Americans say, like the something. Oh, there's balloons. It's like that saying, like something that tipped the camel's back or something like that. Anywho, I'm in Chicago and just like visiting a friend. I get a random message at the airport and someone's like, "I'm on your flight." And I'm like, no, no fucking way. Like this is like not only impacting my life professionally, but now I'm on a plane with someone who can't approach me and it's just saying that they're on my flight. Like guys, like I am so normal. Like I have been in entertainment for a really long time. I am unfazed. I've been in LA like now the majority of my life. Like I am so normal. Like if someone approaches me, I'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And just like be polite, and it's human to human. Like be kind, right? I'm like in a new state, minding my own business, and this person just DMs me, and I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" Like, yeah, I think that was yeah. Anywho, I'm gonna go to the second or the next slide where I discuss how I think younger Gen Zers, as well as like the new generation of folks who are growing up with media, should protect their identities because this is going to get really scary. And I think having a better understanding of how you need to protect your data, your personal brand and identity, and three, your safety, it's going to be crucial for this continuing quote unquote battle with like deep fakes, AI, and all these different changes in the world right now. Hey, thank you for being here. My friends and I run a Gen Z support group for young professionals or newly graduated students. It is free and accessible, so no cost to the students. We just want to make sure that as we get older, we are providing a comfortable and safe workspace and providing as much mentorship as well as peer to peer support. So, if you are interested in learning more about like personal finance or career in a small group setting, feel free to send us an email. Highergen-z.com, excuse me, has all the info that you need, or you can go directly on at highergenz on social media, send us a DM. It's a really small following at the moment, so join while you can. I'm sure we will continue doing this work for a lifetime, so no pressure to join immediately. While my underpaid, overworked intern is here. Okay, so had I had this when I was 19, I feel like I would have saved myself so much headache and waste of resources like my time and money because I had no idea that whatever I posted on Tinder when I was 19 would come to haunt me for like years, you know? So, this is like a precautionary warning to any younger Gen Zers. I feel like there's not enough active conversation about how we can ensure digital safety in this time and age. So I broke this up into like before posting as in like as many precautionary steps as possible, and then like while you're posting, and then when you're consuming other media. So first and foremost, like if you can, oh my god, he's so silly. Download a VPN. I know that some of them may cost a bit of money, but it is worth the investment. And if you can't have a VPN. Make sure you're using like private Wi-Fi and using like correct security settings as often as you can. There are some free resources through like Mozilla Firefox as well as like DuckDuckGo. So those options are available to you. You just have to make sure you're doing your due diligence and finding the right things to download and install. Don't link your social media on anything. Like clout is useless. This is coming from somebody who has lived in Los Angeles for the bulk of her life and also growing up in Seoul, like Seoul, for years, where it's like, I know very well how damaging marketing can be, and it's not worth jeopardizing your safety, your digital brand and identity for some clout. Repeat after me. It is not worth chasing clout. It is not worth chasing clout. Truly, it's not. Don't share it on anything, and make sure if you're using like social media that it's private, and you don't want to include any identifiers like location of like your school or like location of your hometown. Like keep it as vague as possible, and even then like you shouldn't include where you're at. Like that's like no one needs to know that. Like that's none of their business. So just avoid putting in any identifiers. I would highly recommend using Firefox or DuckDuckGo because those don't track your data, nor do they sell it to third party, like miners or whatnot. I forgot the technical term for it, but a lot of like the major like tech companies tend to sell data, and it's a massive like backhand business that doesn't have enough oversight, and that's how marketing and like ad sales is like shaped. So you want to be really smart about what type of browser you're using. If you have not yet had a complex or long password set, make sure you're doing that because like hackers are real. I know that there's a lot of like movies and shows about like nerdy hackers taking over the world. Well, that's actually real life. Yeah, like the deep fakes and like AIs. Like I know it sounds really scary and like a distance away, but like with campaigning, with this upcoming election, etc., like people were falling for deep fakes all the time. Like just be careful, and like if you haven't refreshed your passwords, it doesn't take too long. It takes literally like a minute or two. It's going to save you a lot of time and headache in the future. And also, if you are planning to post even on a private account, remove your friends and families on that private account. Especially if you have a public account, you don't want any of your friends or families to be associated with that media because you don't know if they want to be shown on that, or like if they have identifiers on their social media, like then that would directly link back to you. So you really want to be careful about how you're like choosing who to follow and all that good stuff. And lastly, compartmentalizing your identity, like work, family, friends, and having those clear categories is going to make it a lot easier for you to navigate like what is appropriate for me to post. Like, is this appropriate in a work setting? If not, then should I be posting it? Probably not. So don't do it. But if you do feel the urge to do so, do you have the safety guards to ensure that picture is not leaked or shared or like viewed by people you don't want? Like just make sure you're taking as many precautionary measures so this doesn't happen to you. Okay, so when you decide to start posting on social media after you've taken those precautionary measures, make sure that you're hiding a watermark of like your logo, your Instagram handle, your TikTok handle with whatever to that content, because a lot of brands, a lot of companies will take advantage of younger people and take credit for their work, use it for like a brand campaign, get millions of dollars for it. And youth, like literally the youth just don't get credit for their ideas. So now that Gen Z is like more informed about like how brands take advantage, make sure that you're putting a discreet watermark or logo or something like in your posts. Like don't be taken advantage of, especially by like brands that want to scam you and offer you 10% off for every like sale that you give them. That's MLM, which is like what is it called? Multi-level marketing or something like that. It's a scam basically, and you do not need to be perpetually online to make money. So if it starts impacting your mental health, please step away. Again, I would like to reiterate, use a VPN please when you are posting anything, because you want to ensure that like you're being as safe as possible while you're being online. Again, don't tag any accounts who have any clear identifiers, and you don't want to be taking pictures where someone can trace a landmark back to that location. You just want to be very discerning about like how you are choosing to portray yourself online. Like I understand that there is a massive pressure to chase clout, chase followers, and have like X amount of people looking at you all the time. But please, it's not worth it. Trust me, I have been in entertainment since I was a child and I'm tired of it. And it's like really damaging to like your psyche. So make sure that you are not jeopardizing your mental health and conflating your worth with what you post online, because you are so much more interesting, so much more fun offline than you are online. If On the flip side, like you think you're more interesting online than in real life, which is offline, that's a massive problem. I don't feel like that's talked about enough. Like, don't think that your social media identity is your identity. Like, there is a full life ahead of you and outside of social media, and make sure you're taking advantage of it. If you feel like the internet is the only safe space that you can be a part of, like, try taking smaller actionable steps to create those pockets of community, like closer to your present, like your real life. Obviously there are some constraints, like if you're in an abusive like relationship or from an abusive like family background and you really can't live your full life, like there are exceptions to the rule, but you don't want to not live life out of fear. And I feel like a lot of people tend to be online very often because they don't want to like deal with the realities of the world, because life is really tough. But trust me, like if you're able to build community and build friendships and like have solidarity across these spaces, like it will bring you back to a place of psychological safety where you don't feel that you need the internet anymore. Wow, that was kind of deep. But lastly, please don't use your government name as a social media handle. I know that, people who are like celebrities do that, but if you're a regular person, which is the best type of person to be, trust me, like celebrities are not that interesting. They're actually really boring and like a copy and paste of each other and not very smart at all. Do not use your government name. Like, unless you are so good about compartmentalizing every aspect of your identity, do not use your government name. I will preach that until I am in the grave. Do not use your government name. Wow, we made it to the end. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so when you are consuming other media, like going to websites, like watching random things on maybe some sites you shouldn't necessarily be on, make sure you are on incognito mode, especially if you are using like Safari or Google Chrome. Like, people do not need to have more info about what you like and what you do online. Make sure you're going incognito mode. I hope this helps. I know it's a really long episode, so if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And I hope you have a good rest of your day and week wherever you are. Bless your heart. And sending love and light.
Yay!